In this video, I'm going to go over some tidbit stuff about the immune system. It's important, and it's kind of going to fill in the blanks of what we didn't go over in other videos. So what we are going to talk about is the types of immunity. All right, so let me go through artificial versus natural. Artificial is going to involve medical intervention. So it's going to usually involve a needle. Okay, so artificial and usually medical interventions, specifically probably a needle. Natural does not involve medical intervention. It's going to occur naturally within your body. Okay. Then we have passive and active. Active is when your body has gone through the process of finding the right plasma B, finding the right helper T, going through the process of making memory cells. So with active, you end up with memory cells at the end of the process. Passive, you do not end up with memory cells. Okay? You do not end up with memory cells. So it is usually short-lived. It could save your life, but it is short-lived. So active, memory cells. You end up with memory cells. Passive, you do not. Artificial, usually needles. Natural, no medical intervention. We're going to put those together now. So natural active immunity. So when I was a kid, we had this discussion before, we did not have the chickenpox vaccine. It did not exist. So what would happen is I got exposed to the chickenpox. I got the chickenpox. I got sick. My body went through the process of making memory cells. And now I should be immune to the chickenpox. So that is natural. Okay. It did not involve me getting an injection. I was naturally exposed to the chickenpox. My body then went through the process, ended up with memory cells. So I have natural active immunity to the chickenpox. Okay. That is natural active immunity. Now, you may hear about shingles. Your nervous system has its own kind of immune system. So, and I'm pretty sure I have them in there, that I have the chickenpox virus inside my central nervous system. It's held there because my immune system has been pretty strong. But as I get older, what the shingles virus will do is when your immune system is suppressed because of stress or age, it will then come out of the central nervous system and start following the nerves in your back, or it can do your optic nerve. Some people lose their eyes from shingles. So that's what shingles is. It's just the chickenpox virus. So the reason I'm pretty sure I have it is because in grad school, under high stress, I had a small case of the shingles. But again, I do have natural active immunity to the chickenpox. The next type is artificial active immunity. So artificial means it involves a needle, and active means you end up with memory cells. So vaccines are examples of artificial active. So here's the key to a good vaccine. What they're going to do is they're going to give you a inactive piece of a virus, the DNA of the virus, the RNA of the virus, and they're going to inject that in a vaccine. That piece, okay, or that part is going to cause your body to go through the process of finding the right cytotoxic T, the right helper T, and ending up with memory cells, let's say, of chickenpox. Okay? So you have memory cells against the chickenpox virus. That is artificial active. So it causes you to go through your body to go through the steps to make memory cells. But the other key to vaccines is that it doesn't make you sick. So you don't want to get the chickenpox, but they're going to give you a piece of the virus to cause your body to develop memory cells. So then if you're ever exposed to it, that you won't get it because your memory cells will recognize it and get rid of it before you get sick. I know most of you know this, but I want to make sure that I've said it. Vaccines do not cause autism. They do not cause autism. There is no research, none whatsoever, that shows that connection. And what's happened is we pretty much had eradicated measles in this country by using the vaccine. The only people that had it were usually foreign students that had, or not students, but foreign children who'd come from other countries and brought the measles with them, but then it was not passed on because everyone was vaccinated. So when this false information about the connection between vaccines and autism came out, people started not vaccinating their children. And so we have now started to see outbreaks around the country of measles that are actually getting more and more severe over time because people are not vaccinating their kids. Vaccinate your children. Right? What happens is measles, especially, measles doesn't have a high death rate, but it can be passed on at incredibly high levels. So there's a number called R naught, and that is if one person has a disease, how likely or how many people will they most likely infect? The flu can be anywhere from 1 to 2 people. Okay? The coronavirus, at the time of making of this PowerPoint or video, we don't know what it is, but the measles is 16 to 18. So every one person with the measles can pass that on to 16 or 18 people. So it can be very, very contagious. It also has a long-term, very negative effect on a person's immune system. If you get the measles, you might not die of the measles, but it kind of erases your immune system. And so any memory cells you had for other things tend to go away. They tend to be eliminated. And so people that get the measles and survive have a higher death rate down the road because they've lost their immunity to other infections. So vaccines, not bad. Okay. Artificial active. The next type is artificial passive immunity, and this is injection of antibodies. So it's artificial, there's an injection involved. It's passive, it is temporary immunity. And again, I'm making this for the spring 2020 with the coronavirus, so what I'm going to say may change when may have changed depending on when you're listening to this. But we're in the state right now that we don't have good ways to actually control the virus in people that have it. And what I just read this morning was they are taking the blood of people who had the coronavirus, do no longer have it, but what they have is they have antibodies in their blood. And so once they are sure that the virus is not in their system anymore, they can take their blood, they can do some science stuff and get those antibodies and then possibly inject them into people that have the virus, and those antibodies will hopefully take care of it. And hopefully they will survive. It'll give their body time to develop an attack against it. So again, it's passive. There's no long-term, no memory cells. It's artificial because it's an injection. But again, it can save people's lives. So we'll have to see how that pans out with the coronavirus. The last type is natural passive. So antibodies being passed to a fetus from a pregnant woman. Add breastfeeding to this list. It's natural. Breastfeeding is natural. Getting pregnant is natural. Passive, it's not long term. They don't have memory cells. But when a baby is born, their immune system is pretty weak. And so by breastfeeding, a mother is sharing her antibodies, sharing parts of her immune system with that child temporarily. But if they continue to breastfeed, as that's going on, the baby's immune system is becoming more mature and more developed. So it's natural, but it's passive. It's short term. But again, as long as you're breastfeeding, that immunity will continue. Organ transplant rejection. Okay. Organ transplant rejection is basically your immune system doing what it needs to do. So when someone is found to be a match for someone, you hear, oh, we found a kidney, someone that can donate a kidney. A match, what they're looking at is they're looking at those self proteins, those proteins that are on the cell membrane of your cells. They're called MHC proteins. Every person has a unique combination of these proteins, unless you have an identical twin. You have combinations of these proteins from your mother and father. So when they're trying to find matches for when they're trying to find a match for a transplant, they want as many of those proteins to be the same. So if you put someone else's organ into someone else's body, their immune system is going to see it as a pathogen, as a foreign antigen, and it's going to attack it. And that's when we talk about an organ rejection. That is what's going on. Okay, that is what's going on. The person's immune system is attacking that organ, and it may happen over years. It may happen quickly, but it may happen over years. So people that have organ transplants have to take immunosuppressive drugs for the rest of their lives. So it suppresses their immune system, so it doesn't really care that that organ is foreign, and so it kind of leaves it alone. I always use the example that it makes your immune system drunk. So it's like, that's not part of us, but we don't care. And again, as we go through the coronavirus or any other epidemic that's going to occur in the future, people that have had organ transplants are more susceptible to these kind of things because their immune system's not going to respond correctly. So people that have had organ transplants, it's very important that they stay home and not expose themselves to the virus. Okay, I think the last thing is autoimmune diseases. These are diseases where a person's immune system attacks their own cells. So for some reason, their immune system sees an organ as being foreign, even though it's not. Okay. This is much more prevalent in women than in men. They don't know why. But what their body does is it develops autoantibodies, which means these are antibodies that actually attack their own cells. Examples of some diseases: type 1 diabetes is an autoimmune disease. What happens usually when a person is younger is for some reason their immune system turns against their pancreas, and those cells that make insulin are destroyed. So then they develop type 1 diabetes and have to use insulin for the rest of their lives. Rheumatoid arthritis is where the immune system has turned against the joints of the body, and so osteoarthritis is just the wearing away of a joint. Rheumatoid arthritis is when the immune system is literally attacking the joints. Lupus is kind of a full body autoimmune disease, so it can attack the skin, it can attack several organs, it can lead to death. There are several other types of autoimmune diseases besides these, but these are some of the major ones. So these people with these diseases, not necessarily type 1 diabetes, but rheumatoid and lupus and the other autoimmune diseases, they will be taking immunosuppressive drugs also because they want to suppress their own immune attack against their own body. So these people are also susceptible to diseases. So as we go through the coronavirus and other viruses, they need to be kind of quarantined away because, again, because they're taking these drugs to hold back or decrease the effect of these diseases on their body, they are also more susceptible to infection.